Today we're being joined by Call Me Nakomi from YouTube, who's been on before. I forgot to look up the chapter.
It has happened.
It has happened.
And it was wonderful. So thank you for coming back and joining us again.
My pleasure. It was definitely fun. I mean, always enjoy doing what we do, basically. But it was definitely enjoyable with you and Seth. So
Awesome.
I'm here. I'm back.
And thanks for fighting through the Atlanta traffic to get to us.
Oh, tell me about it. I tell you, traveling. I need to learn how to travel.
Don't we all? That would be like the number one technology I want from Wheel of Time is gateways.
The number one technology.
I like being in new places. I do not like traveling to new places.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Atlanta is definitely something you just have to. It's just a reality of life in Atlanta. You're going to end up in traffic.
I experienced it briefly when I was there for Jordan Con, where I got to actually meet you in person, which was wonderful. You were
it was great
sitting at the bar in a green T-shirt, I think. Well, because you hadn't got a chance to get your badge. You'd shown up a little bit after they were giving them out. And so people were like, wait, is she part of the con? I was like, it's Call Me Nakomi. They're like, oh, of course.
My little me was over here, basically. I got there a little late, so but I got to meet a lot of different people. It was great. So some people recognized me and some people basically didn't. And I was like, I just introduced myself as Felicia to a lot of people, basically, not to, I don't know. I feel for weird name dropping or want people to call me by my, YouTube channel. I'm so sorry. There's a thunder and lightning. There's a lightning storm right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
In Atlanta. So if you guys hear that in the background, it's really nice special effects.
Let's be honest, Nakomi just has thunder and lightning following her around at all times.
That
makes
sense.
All the time. I am a dark friend. Or it's just for amazing, dramatic effect, basically. Yeah. But no, everything's cool. Just excuse the thunder every once in a while.
And the thunder rolls.
So
yeah, today I actually really got into this chapter that we're covering today. It's exciting.
A lot happens in this chapter. I always forget where the break is because this chapter and the next chapter are like explosion of action, and it's like, where do you put a break? I don't.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's so fun. Even my notes like end so abruptly. Like it like ends with Rand accepts. And that's basically how my notes end, basically. But yeah, I actually like this chapter because so many things happen, basically, and because it's basically in Min's point of view. So
yeah, which is wonderful.
It is nice that we get POV.
Yes, definitely.
So, and you said you had to leave Jordan Con on Sunday?
I left Saturday night, actually. Because I had to coach my daughter's basketball camp thing, basically. So. Trying to be the responsible parent.
Weak.
Yeah.
Good on you.
So, yeah. I mean, hey, it's just for 6 weeks, so thank goodness. But hey, it's cool. I enjoy being there for the kids, but yeah, had to basically cut and run.
But you're in the same city as the con, so you could balance real life and con life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just lucky enough, that it's actually in the same city that I am, and unfortunate that this is the first one that I've actually been to. So, but it was fun. It was so fun, basically, just talking to people, laughing, taking breaks outside, and just basically coming inside and just talking to different people. CouchCon was great, basically, with Matt and Dusty Will and everything like that. So it was pretty cool.
Nice.
Pretty cool. I actually saw another podcast group that I wanted to say hello to, and they just disappeared. I never saw them again. So I was like, oh, I missed my chance. But I saw them during CouchCon, so I was like, I didn't want to walk out and be like, hey, the Dragon Reread, guys. Be those fanboys, but yeah.
Can I get your autograph?
Can I get your autograph?
Yeah, that's one of the things I in hindsight, of course, I forgot to do a million things, but one of the things I would have loved to do is like some collective signing of all the podcasters and YouTubers together on one thing. That's something I might have to set up.
That would have been awesome. Yeah. That would have been awesome. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of us there.
Just maybe like a big poster of one of the posters of the con art, and just have everybody sign
that. Yeah, or just all sign the walls in one of the event rooms.
I'm sure that I wouldn't have been angry at us at all for that with the deposit and the hotel.
That would have went over very, very
really well.
Yeah. We're never going to wash this wall off.
But yeah, no, taking one of the event posters and having everyone sign it would be a fun, like, yearbooky kind of thing.
Yeah. Next year. Here's the next year.
Here's the next year. Yeah. And then auction that shit off for charity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, the thing is, you guys were waiting to have this idea until the con that I go to for the first time. That's clearly what that's all about.
Well,
exactly. We were like, we can't sign this without Aradia.
There definitely was like a bit of like holding her breath at the con. Like, well, I guess this isn't a real con because Aradia's not here. There was that definitely like... It felt like half a con, and people were saying that. And it was like, well, you know, Aradia's not here, so...
Yes, Aradia, who has literally never been to a con other than Spoiler Con, definitely is going to bring the con vibes.
Hey, you never know. You might have been that missing piece. Just have that extra piece of information there.
Next year.
You got a few pieces of information at your disposal.
One or two.
Aradia, can I make you read us into this chapter?
Min! Yes.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
This is chapter 35, Into the Woods, and our symbol is the dragon's fang, for reasons that should be multitudinous and obvious.
Fane, I guess?
Rand being a nut job, Fane, Toram Riotin.
Rand seems pretty balanced right now.
Yeah.
So maybe Fane. Give Rand another, couple chapters. Maybe he might get right back there, but who knows?
Well, this is sort of, we're saying, the manic phase of his manic depressiveness after being in the box. Like, he was depressed for a little while. He was convinced he raped men. He locked himself in his room for a week and didn't bathe. And now he comes out and goes, I can do anything. I'm the Dragon Reborn. It's like, yeah, you're not having any mental issues. Yeah.
Well, and remember the last chapter, he had a PTSD episode basically on the boat, right? Where suddenly the walls are closing in and he's like, I'm done negotiating. As of right now, I'm deciding that. So this is him being like, and now I'm on top of the world. Yeah.
I could think of at least a couple of conditions that I could basically apply to that. That sounds very bipolar disorder, basically, kind of. So I can see that happening. Be like, oh, the world is horrible. Oh, I could do anything.
Yeah.
Unicycling. I'm taking it up tomorrow.
Totally. So I think that, and also we have a lot of like Rand on Aes Sedai kind of interaction, which also sort of invokes the Dragon's Fang of like the broken relationship between male and female channelers.
Sure.
It's a super meta reading.
If I want to go real meta and talk about how the box was COVID and being locked in our apartments, and now as a society we've come out of the box and are in a bit of a manic depressive cycle, especially around resurgent cases and stuff like that. It's yeah,
and isn't it like national parks are seeing more visitors than like ever because everyone's like, it's been 18 months and I actually am going to a national park now, and the national parks are like, we would have appreciated this attention over the last 20 years, not all at once. Please and thank you.
I'm gonna take my kids to the park and show them a tree. Look, kids, that's a tree. It's just yeah. You could have got. I'm sure they could have used your donations a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah. As the thunder rolls.
Okay, reading in Min. Sitting cross-legged on Rand's bed, Min watched him in his shirt sleeves, rooting through the coats in the huge ivory inlaid wardrobe. How could he sleep in this room, with all its black, heavy furniture? A part of her thought absently about moving everything out, replacing it with some carved pieces she had seen in Camelin, lightly touched with gilding, and pale draperies and linens that he would find less oppressive. Odd. She had never cared one way or another about furniture or linens. But that one tapestry of a battle, of a lone swordsman surrounded by enemies and about to be overwhelmed, that definitely had to go. Mostly, though, she just watched him. There was such an intent look in his morning blue eyes, and the snowy shirt tightened across the broad of his back when he turned to reach deep into the wardrobe's interior. He had very good legs and marvelous calves, shown off well in dark, close-fitting breeches, with his boots turned down. Sometimes he frowned, combing fingers through dark reddish hair. No amount of brushing could make it ruly. It always curled slightly around his ears and on the nape of his neck. She was not one of those fool women who toss their brains at a man's feet along with their hearts. It was just that sometimes, near him, thinking clearly became a trifle difficult. That was all. Coat after embroidered silk coat came out and was tossed to the floor atop the one he had worn to the Seafolk ship. Could the negotiations still be going half so well without his Taviran presence? If only she had a really useful viewing of the Seafolk. As always, to her eyes, images and colorful auras flickered around him, most gone too quickly to make out, all but one meaningless to her at the moment. That one viewing came and went 100 times a day, and whenever Matt or Perrin were present, it encompassed them too, and sometimes others. A vast shadow lurked over him, swallowing up thousands upon thousands of tiny lights like fireflies that hurled themselves into it in an attempt to fill up the darkness. Today there seemed to be countless tens of thousands of fireflies, but the shadow seemed larger too. Somehow, that viewing represented his battle with the shadow, but he almost never wanted to know how it stood. Not that she could really say, except that the shadow always seemed to be winning to one degree or another. She sighed with relief to see the image go. I think that was like mistakeless. My practice is
Well
paying
done.
off.
Well done. Well done.
Editing Seth, thanks you.
For sure. That happened.
Yes. Yes.
So this is sort of Min watching him just as they're hanging out in the bed.
Well, because he's changing clothes to
Yeah.
go to this to do the subterfuge meeting thing because he doesn't want to look like the Dragon Reborn, so he has to like take off all the finery and find some like plain clothes, which he doesn't really have. And she's sitting on the bed like, I'm not changing for this situation.
Which she needs to because she ends up in heeled boots in the terrible terrain and the heat. She's wearing heels.
Yeah, she really should have worn hiking boots on this mission, or at least
yeah, I
flats.
know, right? Some Timberlands or something like that would have been come in really handy, basically. But by the end of it, basically Caroline is like looking at her like, "Who makes your clothes? Like,
Right.
who's your seamstress?
Like, at least you're in
So-
pants.
Right.
At least you're in pants. At least you're in pants. Exactly. Yeah.
God, yeah, doing these things, not just in a dress, but these bulky skirts they describe with multiple layers made out of heavy wool. It's like, you can't do anything in that.
Yeah, I want to say that like the Kyrianan in Great Hunt, they have like hoop skirts almost, or like it's not bustles, it's like hoop skirts. Like they're huge. They have to like turn sideways to go through doors and stuff. Like I don't know that Caroline's wearing that, but she could be.
She could be. I mean, I hope that basically that's not what she decided to wear hunting.
Oh yeah, no, she's riding on a
Basically.
horse, so she must be wearing something slightly more practical.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like
right.
divided skirts, whatever that exactly looks like. I kind of have an idea in my brain of what that looks like, but of what my mind makes sense of what divided skirts looks like. But I mean, who knows?
I see
They-
big floofy pants.
Yes,
That's what
Yeah.
I see.
exactly. The layers upon layers, but you would have to like dig through just to see legs, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Big floofy pants, but then also like a panel on the front and a panel in the back. So it still looks like a skirt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then tall boots underneath. That's not great for cross country hiking at all.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
You know what's
picture
funny?
in
I'm
chat
just
that shows. Okay, that's actually quite stylish. I like that picture.
oh, okay, okay. I see it too. Yeah,
Culottes.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Looks like it's got buttons down the middle to hold it together if you want to in that particular photo.
Mm.
Culottes. Culottes.
Culottes.
I want some
Cool.
culottes. I need to look up a pattern for those now.
Real quick, the
Yep.
fireflies.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just basically there's something about the fireflies. And it's like, okay, so I was just thinking about it, and I was just like, okay, so basically, even I would assume that even up to the last battle, it probably still doesn't exactly seem like the fireflies are winning, because even though everything is kind of not exactly going right, but everybody's kind of doing what they need to do, they're still losing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's still, at least they're still being overwhelmed, basically. So I'm just thinking, I'm like, is that a? I was thinking about it, and I was just like, is that kind of like Nynaeve's weather sense, where she was just like, a storm is coming, and it's just like no matter what, it's just like she's like, a storm is coming.
Yeah, I feel like they're related. I feel like the storm specifically is like the last battle
Mhm.
in that case. The fireflies to me is more. And one thing she did say is when all three boys are together, the fireflies hold their own. So
Right.
to me, that's sort of the representation of the people versus the battle. But really, until Rand has his Veins of Gold moment, I think they're losing. Because everything is all the Lord of Chaos stuff, all the corruption is leading him towards destroying the world on the Dragon Mount.
Right. Did she speak about the Fireflies post him coming down from the mountain and getting back to Tyr?
That's not something
I don't
I don't remember. I haven't gotten back there.
Yeah.
I need to get back to those old. I haven't read those last 3 books in a while also, so I need to go back over those.
But I'm fairly certain that's not something that really ever comes up again.
I genuinely don't remember, but I almost think that like that vision might be kind of in doubt up until it was about all of them, because that's what it is. It's all of these people who are willing to throw themselves into the battle. But I mean, I'm sure Veins of Gold is a profound moment, but really Rand considers the Dark One's offer, like they don't really win until he remembers that it's about all of them choosing to continue fighting.
Right.
True.
Right.
And it makes sense that it's stronger when the boys are together because they're all leaders, coalescing people and pointing them at the last battle rather than futzing with each other with normal human politics.
Mm-hmm.
I like how in here the shadow is larger too, so that seems to represent the Dark One is breaking free, gaining more power, gaining more followers. Like both sides are swelling up and getting stronger.
And Rand's getting more insane and more nihilistic. So like the Dark One's ability to break him before the battle even starts is like that margin of error is narrowing. But at the same time, the boys are all coming stronger into their leadership and Rand is picking up more kingdoms. Like there are more Fireflies. But as Min rants later in the chapter, like it's all about balance. It's all about balance.
That's what I was thinking about. I was just like, it's about balance, basically. Like she was telling Caroline. Yeah, that he brings balance. So I guess it would say the group brings balance. So when they're actually all pointed in the right direction, then I guess it would be like that middle point, basically, where the Fireflies and the darkness, the shadow, basically kind of evens itself out. I would like to see that. That's another part of wanting to see how they do in the show. Like, how are they going to show Min's viewings? Like those Fireflies in the background, like just like, are this going to be a shadow behind him and just Fireflies basically around? Like personally, I probably won't find anything cheesy. I'm the kind of person who goes to bad movies just to watch bad movies. Like I know it's a bad movie, I'm gonna go to it just to see how bad it is. That's the kind of person I am. So I find value in everything. So I'm just like, you know what? Even if it's just because it's on the screen, I probably is gonna give it a pass. But I would love to see. I want to see how they basically show all of these. And it's funny because in this chapter, she has tons of viewings all over the place, basically.
Yeah, she does. This is a very. Not only is it a Min POV, well, I guess that's why. It's because it's a Min POV, so we actually get to see what's in her. But yeah, she's also seeing a lot of important stuff because like she can go days without seeing anything. But in this is a very eventful day, so she sees a lot.
Well, and the first one we see is her actually recalling one, which is what good to tell him he would almost certainly fail without a woman who was dead and gone, which we know is a Moraine reference. Right. And we see, I highlighted all the Moraine references in blue, and they kept popping up throughout this chapter. Like, Moraine gets referenced more often in this chapter. It's like, remember, like, she is coming back.
Right.
Especially with Caroline Damodred, who's her cousin and looks just like her.
Yeah.
Who will obviously be played by Rosamund Pike in the show. Right? Like,
just give her a different colored wig. It'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. No, just don't give her a wig.
To green, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rosamund's blonde, so just have her be Caroline without the wig.
Oh my god, that would be so trippy if they were like, psych! Rosamund's going to be like, wait a second, what? Okay.
Right. So do I get an extra check for playing another character?
They'll be like, yes, if you accept a smaller rate. It's a smaller character.
Yeah. They're like, you're already an executive producer. What more do you want? Like,
what more do you want? Yes, pay yourself. Go ahead.
Exactly. Go right ahead.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, we obviously all know that references the fact that she's still alive, being held by the Finn, going to be rescued by Matt, Tom, and Noel.
Who is not fully in the plot yet, but isn't fully not in the plot yet. Noel
he's hanging around.
He's around, but he's not named. He's not interacting directly. He's just drifting about the edges and causing head scratches.
Right. But no one but Tom really knows that she's still alive at this point, though.
Right. Because Tom has the letter, which presumably he's already read like 1 billion times.
Exactly.
Keeps flashing it in front of Matt, being like, I'm reading this letter again. You gonna ask about it?
Has he started flashing in front of Matt yet?
Oh, yeah. He's been flashing. Oh, definitely.
Okay. So yeah, Tom knows, but
Right.
but he doesn't know who the third is going to be because the third hasn't introduced himself yet. Like, yeah.
Right. It could be, I mean, up to the point when Noel says, I'll go. It could be anybody. It could have been.
It could have been Oliver for all we know.
Right. Yeah.
Right,
Oh, that would have been so
exactly.
sad.
Well, Oliver would have definitely volunteered, but yeah, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Oliver basically does volunteer, and all the adults are like, no.
No.
We're in a pact. This child does not come.
Exactly. You sit down and eat your chocolate, drink your chocolate milk.
Right.
Exactly.
So honestly, you know what I would have really loved is for Oliver to get sucked into a parallel dimension where time moved differently, to grow up and like be a hero in the parallel dimension, slaying Grolm, and then be rescued and be like this badass warrior, and then go on the trip with them.
Oh, that would have been awesome. Some sort of like
Have
Portal
him, like,
World, like he gets
Portal
like
World,
14 years or something like that. Oh man.
For those of you who are Angel fans, I believe they did that with his son to get him to age up really quick. It's definitely a little trope in TV shows. If you like, you want the kid to have a child, but like you don't want to wait around for the kid to grow up. You put him in a parallel dimension where time moves faster.
I'm trying to. I'm like, I kind of remember that from somewhere. I'm trying to remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's in the 100. They've got that. It's definitely a twist in a Doctor Who episode somewhere. Yeah, it's a trope, but it's a good trope. It's
That's a good
evergreen.
Never gets old. Never gets old.
Well,
Absolutely.
the kid gets old. That's the point. Yep.
Yes. Well played.
Touche.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So yeah, just having fun with thinking Oliver being in that situation, because like he has so much potential, and I would love to see it.
That's what an Outrigger
And it's
novel is for.
I know.
But yeah, that would be cool.
See, and now I'm picturing Matt in trouble, getting like rescued, and be like, "Need a hand?" And it's like grown up Oliver, like.
Right. He's hanging on a cliff, and then out of nowhere, he's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And he's like, man, I wish I hadn't like let him down. And then he like literally picks him up. Oh man.
he's like, Matt, all the things that you taught me over that year, I used none of it. Like none of it is useful. I've just been raising myself here. Like one of the kids, like one of the kids in Peter Pan. I've just been raising myself out in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Or he meets up with him and is like, Matt, you know nothing about women. Just the first thing he says to him, you know, what did you teach me as a child? Those smiles are creepy.
I pinched the girl's butt and ended up in jail for 3 months.
Right, what the hell? You creep, just because you're lucky doesn't mean the rest of us can get away with it.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Okay, so men are strange creatures who don't take advice and deliberately do the opposite.
We do not.
Yeah, I find that to be like one of those like actually people do that. You give people advice and they immediately say nuh-uh and do the opposite. But I think particularly on a men to women interaction, like it's less of a problem when you're within the same gender. If you're going across genders, then the advice will almost certainly be flipped around.
But yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is whenever men are complaining about women or women complaining about men, just replace men with people or women with people. Because people do all those things. We're all irritating as fuck.
Yeah, and like what is reasonable advice to one person is absolute lunacy to the person receiving the advice. So it's like, but it's still funny because, I mean, Min and Rand have such a cute relationship and they, you know, they've clearly spent a lot of time together. Let's just say if they have this level of irritation. Like, what are you thinking? It's like, yeah,
right, exactly.
You're a couple. I can tell.
Bullhead. Yeah, exactly. And she's trying to basically like, you know, be like, you don't really want to go to that camp. Why don't you stay here in comfort me a little bit more? And he's just like, no, I can't do that. No. He thinks about it. It's just like, no, I can't.
He's like, you can just see him with the jacket like half raised with his hand like hesitating, like, no, I gotta go.
It's like the dots, the 3 dots, the 3 dots when you're typing into.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, it's just like a little spinning wheel above his head, like, well.
I would like to do that, but I also kind of have the fate of the world in my hands, so I can't really dally in this moment where I think things are going my way and I have this magic plot armor on my side.
But it's a good move on Min's part. I mean, it does generally derail plans quite easily to make those kinds of offers.
Sometimes. I mean, well, I being married, it doesn't always work.
It's true. As the years of marriage accumulate, it loses its efficacy slightly.
Yeah, it's just like,
did you?
Yeah, but I was gonna actually, lots of different things. It's just like, yeah, but I was really gonna read this book tonight. It's just like, okay, just throwing it out there. Fine, cool. No problem. We'll revisit, table it, pinning it.
Oh, but God, I've been really looking forward to this new episode of Watt.
Tell you.
Yeah, dude, Friday nights.
Yeah, I know. We're going to be booked.
In November. I'm going to be like, nope, busy. Sorry.
This is a business meeting.
Exactly. Do not disturb on everything.
I do like the thoughts of her aunts that she has here, though, of like, they would literally skin me alive and also him because, wow, that's a thing. And it's like, on the one hand, prudishness, boo, but on the other hand, it's really funny.
And it is consistent with where they're both from, right? Min and Rand are both from the prudish part of Andor, the backwater prudish part. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the parts that usually people don't go and visit often enough.
Not willingly.
Right.
What? There's no brothels?
Right. Yeah, totally.
It's just, I think in the miners' town, there's plenty of brothels.
I'm sure there is.
That would
just like outside of the not the Black Tower. What do they call that? The wall? What do they call that? What's that? Castle Black.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
even though they're supposed to be taking a vow of celibacy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Sure. Exactly.
It's like literally nobody's buying that line at all.
At all. Exactly.
And so Rand finds his coat from Dumai's Wells and gets kind of he's triggered again. You know, he was just triggered in the boat, and now he's triggered again because the coat reminds him of that day. But it's really plain, so it works for his purposes.
Why is that a plain coat?
I think because the Aes Sedai dressed him in plain clothes.
Oh no, it's because it's all I could find in the wreckage. That's what it was.
I was wondering. I was like, how did he? I was like, I guess that was just a leftover coat, or they, like you said, Aradia, maybe they dressed him in plain clothes in case he gets seen.
Right. You know, because it would have taken him in nice clothes, right, and then been like, you are now not the dragon, or you're not the king of whoever. I mean, the dragon reborn, but so like have some plain normal clothes because they don't want him naked because that would just be weird because they're all reds, and the sight of naked men is like gonna, I don't know, burn their eyes out of their heads or something.
Exactly.
But I do remember the line after into my Wells. He like looks for a coat, and that's the plain green coat is the only thing he could find among the wreckage that would fit him. Mm-hmm. So there is that. Like, I'm pretty sure they say that explicitly, and that's why it's a plain coat because it's like not his. It was just one he found on the floor, basically. In a lost and found.
But yeah, he's having he's like being triggered and like shaking from that. And Min does the best possible thing, which is to give him a hug and say she loves him, which is like not much else you can do. That's, again, she understands him on a level that's really adorable.
If not for Min.
Oh my God, right?
Period.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
It just occurred to me, do you have a lost and found after a battle? Like, I have to imagine you drop a lot of stuff, right? Like, how do you get that back? Do you go, like, search the battlefield?
You send the camp follower children out to pick through the bodies.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's how that goes.
Right.
Or just the camp followers in general.
I just imagine, like, after a big party, there's always, like, a bunch of stuff left behind, you know?
Socks,
I imagine
lighters.
a battle's like that with, a bunch of dead people, too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Finger, toe, iPhone.
Yeah. Exactly. You leave those things behind in a battle, right? Like,
exactly.
You got to go back. Because it's hard to type on your phone without a finger or a phone.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Grab somebody else's finger.
Excuse me. Can I borrow that?
Exactly. Let me borrow that finger. I mean, sometimes your fingers don't pick up on the screen. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. If they're too cold because they're severed, it can be a real problem.
Exactly.
But yeah, also you have to get all the weapons
Yeah.
back, right? Like all the people who die, they leave their weapons out there, and those are like valuable tools. So someone has to go out
Mhm.
there and get them. So they might as well pick up all the, like lost solo cups and sneakers that are also scattered about.
People leave sneakers at parties. That's horrible. But I
Yeah.
could see it. Yeah, I could see shoes definitely being left at parties because women come out of their shoes within about half an hour after getting to the party.
Right? Yeah. And it's always one
Yeah.
sock. You never find the pair of socks. You only just find the one sock. It's like somebody is walking around with one sock, and I personally cannot handle one sock. All or nothing with the socks, but party to
Why do I
choose.
imagine a bunch of moms tagging armor with little tags on the inside? Return to Bobby if found.
That's rough.
Exactly. It's funny because you mentioned that, and later on in the chapter, like everybody in the camp basically has a mismatched assortment of armor and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, so they just kind of collected it, kind of like the Two Rivers folk basically just had like breastplates and stuff just laying around. So
Yeah,
maybe they basically looted a battlefield.
they've been in bad shape for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Just waiting for Rand to come and pick them up.
So yeah, Min is like, Rand, this isn't gonna work. And Rand's like, I'm the dragon reborn. Is two gonna work?
Is two.
No, it's not, Rand. It's really not.
You should take the maidens. No, I don't need the maidens.
Yeah.
In fairness, most of the maidens would probably just have gotten torn apart by the mist. So, good call.
In hindsight, yeah.
They probably wouldn't have even gotten to the mist because they would have gotten into a battle with all the hunters that show up on Caroline's heels, and it would have been a bloodbath out in the woods.
Definitely. I mean, tree killers and tyrants, yeah.
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 That would not have gone well.
Yeah.
And the tyrants especially, well, all of the wetlanders especially would have been like, there's Aiel, we are going to kill them. There is no negotiating with Aiel.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best. It was dangerous, but definitely the best choice or if he was going to do that, it would have had to been done the way he did it, basically, this small party.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have just did him and Min, but I mean, hey, sometimes you gotta take chances, I guess. When you feel that severe and glow going on, you're just like, you know what? I'm going to Vegas.
I say he should have taken like Nandira or just somebody to watch his back, But But this is what leads them to beat the crap out of him. Basically, is him going and getting stabbed. Is like it reveals to them that he's been doing this and running away and basically violating their honor, and it pisses them off. And they, he's suffering from this cut, and they come in there and just beat him in the gut until he is down.
Yeah,
hard.
they carefully avoid beating the exact injury, but the rest of him is completely up for grabs. And they even beat Min a little bit when she tries to stop it. They're like, excuse us, this is an issue. We are dealing with it. But yeah, this is why. It's because when he comes back wounded and they think they're guarding him in his room, and it's like, it's so disrespectful.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that they didn't, take a little bit more out on Min. I mean, because of that, basically. I mean,
probably because she didn't actually enter into an agreement with them, whereas Rand explicitly did. Mm-hmm. They're probably wishing that they could get her to swear something so they could beat the shit out of her.
That part, exactly.
So Min's not kidding when she says Nandira won't like this. Like that's how much Nandira won't like it.
Nandira will punch you in the face over how much she does not like this.
Mm-hmm. Literally. I mean, he comes back, he falls into a coma for a couple of days, wakes back up, and then leaves for who knows how many other months going to Ilion, and then he comes back. Yeah, beat the hell out of him. Yeah. I
mean, I'm not normally one for corporal punishment, but like, you entered into a bargain with warriors. The fuck did you expect would happen?
Right. Exactly. That's why he just takes it like a champ and just like
he does take it.
Okay,
well,
it's true. He says, "I deserve that.
It's okay. I deserve that. It's okay. It's okay."
Nope, that was entirely fair. That was
yeah, for sure. So they gateway out into the thick of it.
Walk for a little while until they run into Caroline, Damodred, Moraine's twin.
Doppelganger.
Yeah.
Doppelganger.
Yeah, it's so funny. They go through the doorway and Min's immediately like, okay, so it's a 7 or 8 mile walk back to where you just gatewayed us from. And it's like,
right.
And it's
so
hot
optimistic
as fuck
of you, Min, to think that he's immediately going to walk back to where he just gatewayed from. But yeah, they stand there for 2 seconds before Caroline shows up.
Right. Ta'Veren?
Yeah.
He's not
Exactly.
wrong, but Ta'Veren is strong with this one, right? Like
It's strong today. It's strong.
It's strong.
Yeah.
But, again, the balance is so important because all these good things are happening to him. What's the balance?
Yeah.
Something bad's going to happen, right? Like, something bad has to happen. And the fact that he's blithely ignoring that part. And Min's the one who calls it out. She's the one who has that great speech on balance.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a little late for
Right.
Rand to factor that into his planning for the day.
Fair.
But yeah, no, that it sets you as the reader up to be like, the other shoe is gonna drop, like hard. It's gonna stomp more than drop.
Goodness, tell you, it's almost hard not to read on to the next chapter when this chapter ends.
Yeah.
That's how it's just like, okay,
It does pretty much keep going. I mean, we can
turn that
keep going.
volume all the way up.
This is our second reference to Moraine. Moraine was the only viewing of hers that had ever failed. And we do link those two together. The woman who was dead and gone, and like those seem very obviously the same.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, it's in one chapter, I think.
Yeah,
It's obvious, and not in an RJ sort of way. It's like actually obvious.
Like the way to clarify, like not an RJ obvious. 'Cause
RJ obvious. What is that?
it's obvious who killed Asmodean. Really? Is it?
And I've never understood why Caroline like just hides Rand and like goes along with this whole thing. Like I've never quite understood her motivations throughout this chapter of like, I'm gonna call you somebody else. I'm gonna put my reputation on the line to like hide you. It's like he came to do his dragon thing. Like why are you helping him? You're a rebel against him. Like what?
Right. I kind of figured that maybe it's just because of the fact that it was just like he didn't seem specifically like he was threatening. I mean, he came by himself, and obviously he should be a channeler, being the Dragon Reborn, so he could do damage. So since she came across him alone herself, I guess, and then they started speaking. Maybe she basically got to a point where she was just like, okay, you know what? He is the Dragon Reborn, and most nobles basically are at least should be learned enough that he's kind of important.
And they're out of options, right? They know they have lost the battle. They don't have any troops to support them. They barely have any food. As I say, it's the look of a defeated army, and she sees the person who has her in a trap walk in. She's gonna be like, maybe there's a chance. Like, what else is she gonna do? Attack him, right? Like, call him out and be like, this is the guy who's trapping us. Everyone swarm him. Like, how's that gonna end? Not well. Like,
I mean, even Darlin kind of sounds when he comes in. Sorry to be jumping ahead. Even he sounds like he's just like, I've just been waiting for him to show up and basically just collect us all and just go. So it seems like they're just like yeah. So we didn't exactly. This is obviously not going well, and we're obviously not in a position for it to work out well right now. So maybe she was just like, okay, well, let's just see where this goes, and and just basically deal with it. Another thing I was thinking, I was just like, I would have loved to have heard Moraine's opinion about Caroline. Like, I would have loved to have heard them talk about each other, because Caroline sounds also very practiced in Deus de Mar, and just basically court intrigue, and just playing politics and realizing people who are dangerous. It was almost kind of like she was his guide in that party, but in the tent, basically. I was just like, I would have loved to have heard Moraine to speak about her. Would she be younger than Moraine? I wonder.
Moraine's only like in her 40s, right?
I don't know why I always thought that Moraine was old.
No, Moraine's in her 40s because she was raised.
Yeah. In my brain, I always think she's older, but yeah, she's supposed to be in her 40s.
And Caroline seems like she's got to be about the same age. I mean, she's not significantly older or younger than that. She's not like a young woman.
Right. I mean, she looks just like Moraine, so I assume that they basically
right.
Yeah. I would have loved to hear their opinions of each other.
Yeah, the only thing I can think is Moraine in New Spring being like, yeah, basically all the Damodreds are crap. And like, there's a few exceptions, but mostly they're all terrible people.
My dad, that's the only one who's good, my dad.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess Caroline must be one of the exceptions she's thinking of, but she doesn't ever mention her by like relational name or anything.
My assumption is Caroline is quite a bit younger because Moraine has slowed, and so if they look the same, Caroline
Possible.
and also
Definitely.
Caroline is of marrying age, right? She's like got to be in her early 20s.
Oh, that's true. She probably wouldn't be past 30 and unmarried, given her ranking in the
So I imagine 20 years ago in New Spring, she was either a baby or like just
like a
or
kid.
not yet born. Yeah, a kid.
Yeah, no, that
Right.
makes sense. Which again would suggest that Moraine wouldn't have an opinion of her because she's like way too young to possibly
Exactly.
be an evil, conniving bitch.
Right.
Right.
But
I hate that fucking infant.
Right? Clearly. Oh no, I wonder who Caroline's descended from. Like, exactly how is she?
What part of the family?
Because I remember like Moraine has a sister who is way more interested in having children and just being domestic than potentially becoming on the throne. I remember that from New Spring. So I wonder if Caroline is one of those kids that came from the sister who's not bad, just not politically savvy because she'd rather just be domestic.
Right. Kind of like I forgot her name. Never mind. The one from the sister of Game of Thrones who basically just had her son and was just basically just lost in her son, didn't really care about anything else pretty much.
Oh, the one up in the Eyrie or whatever.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
Did not like that plot.
That was creepy. Yeah.
Super Sky likes saying that there is a family tree. So
I was actually about to, I was like, I will do that later. I'll look it up later, basically, the family tree.
and it's not super
That'd be
relevant. I mean, it's
interesting.
royal cousins, right? Like they're cousins, whatever. But in this case, they're actually related. These are people who should not be having children together, level of cousins, probably.
Probably.
But which gets a little confusing when they start referring to Rand as a cousin because he's not, but he almost
He
is.
is.
But he is. Yeah.
In the royal sense, he actually literally is
Yeah,
a cousin
'cause- right.
from a minor
So-
branch
Yeah.
of an Andoran house.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's like circles within circles, wheels within wheels.
But yeah, Caroline basically lays down on Rand, like, here's a bunch of things that I've heard about you. And Rand's like, I'm a pillow stuffed full of hottie. Kneel. And she's like, how about no? But at this point, she's sent off the arrow, which totally could have killed Rand. She sent that off, and it's coming down inches from Darlin's nose and almost killing him because what goes up must come down.
Yeah. But something random benefiting Rand, Taviran.
Yeah, and not
Yeah.
stabbing Darlin. Like,
Right.
it easily could have killed Darlin. If he had been Toram, the arrow might have come down a few inches to the right. But because Darlin is actually a very important ally to the rest of this age as well as the beginning of the next, he doesn't die. So that's going for him.
I always wondered if that was basically like a signal. I mean, I know it would have been very, very hard to judge exactly where that bolt would have basically came down, but I was just wondering, I'm like, is that also Taviran, that bolt actually came down right next to Darlin, which basically alerted him that something that he might need to go and find Caroline, or was that basically her plan to basically signal for help somehow? It would have been a very, very it would have been a huge long shot for her to calculate that basically, but at the same time it kind of worked out basically for both her and Rand.
She would know the basic direction of the party. She's got
Right,
like, she could aim the thing roughly in their direction, but at the same time it's like, you could kill one of your party,
You kill
so
somebody.
maybe don't do that.
And she really seems to fire it with the casualness of someone who thinks nobody else is around.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, so that's got to just be entirely Taviran, because again, the Taviran is strong in this moment. So
Yeah, we've been told that repeatedly. Yeah.
You do things that you wouldn't probably do often. Yeah.
but it does work
Yeah,
to bring the
yeah.
rest of the party over, which is good because otherwise this chapter wouldn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Caroline's real objection to Rand is like pretty reasonable. Same with Darlin. Like the objections to him being rulers are mostly reasonable, like bringing in invaders or changing fate by being Taviran. Like those are actual problems. This isn't the whole like, making the rich accountable to the poor, which is just a good thing that nobody should be upset about. Like they have legitimate complaints with Rand's existence.
And he does say he wants to put Elaine on both thrones, which we later see they're mostly okay with. They just don't want, again, him putting her on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Caroline's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That works for me. I mean, I think at some point they even say like, we're trying to avoid Colliver seizing the throne.
Yeah.
That's why Darlin says that's why he came back to try to put Caroline on the throne, but before Colliver basically snatched it up for herself. But Rand came back and basically put that all to bed, and now they're just basically stewing, in the woods.
Yeah.
But they are misconstruing how Taviran works, because, as Min brings up, there's a balance of the good against bad, right? There's these bad things happening, but there's also good things happening, right? Rand, and they're ignoring all the good things. It's really just making extreme events more likely, not necessarily making bad stuff happen more often.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's the same with like the entire mythos around the Dragon Reborn. Like, he's the whole reason that these prophecies exist is because he has to save the world from the inevitable return of the Dark One. But almost everybody living in the world is like, Dragon Reborn bad. End of story. Like, that's kind of how they approach his Taviran too. It's like, we're making scary things happen, and it's like, yeah, but he's making miraculous things happen too.
Right. And I honestly, as far as, well, yeah, I guess that's kind of how Moraine basically describes it in the beginning, as far as it's a Taviran thing rather than it just being a Rand thing. Sometimes I think it was more of a, because I kind of feel like Rand is more connected to the pattern, and I guess that is the effect of the pattern, basically using him to balance, rather than it being a Matt and Perrin also basically is like, walking through a town and all the birds basically run into each other. I don't think that happens as often. I kind of felt like it was more of a, I mean, the Taviran thing definitely of, chance happening basically a lot more in their favor, would be Taviran. But as far as the people basically, falling down steps and not having a bruise on them, I kind of always thought that was more Rand, the world is one with Rand, and Rand is one with the world, whatever, the land.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is the Dragon Reborn is more at one with the land, and that becomes really important in the last couple of books, when he realizes that he can take his Taviranness, and instead of balancing himself, he can balance the Dark One. And that's where a lot of his powers come from in the last couple of books, where he's able to actually, because the Dark One is sort of balancing out that scale, the Dragon Reborn becomes the other half of that balance, more so than any other Taviran. And so that lets him really do things like make stuff grow, and there's a few other little powers that he has, where he's basically, it makes the food turn out to be all right, makes the apples grow. All that stuff has to do with the fact that he's balancing the bad the Dark One is doing with the good,
right?
Not because he is inherently good, but because the Dark One is putting its thumb on the scale, and the Dragon Reborn is balancing that back out again.
And not that he's healing the grain or anything like that, but it's just like, oh yeah, we happen to check just the exact amount of grain bags that basically are bad, and all the other grain bags are good. Yeah, look at that. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How unlikely is that? Very unlikely. But possible.
Very unlikely. But that's exactly what Ben said.
Right. I wonder too if the three boys initially had much more similar Taviran attributes, and then as they each come into their power, they kind of go off into their own little specialization, and so it's not just an eye of the worldism for their Taviran to be described as being one thing and then to differentiate. It partially has to do with their growth as characters into their separate tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. Or the Taviran starts off as sort of a general thing, but the more it absorbs your personality and the more of you put into it, it's sort of, Matt's Taviranness becomes luck, not because that's what Taviran is, but that's because that's what he thinks of it as, right?
Right, and he's making choices based on that, which then influences the next few threads in the pattern, and it's a positive feedback loop at that point.
Right. And Perrin's is basically just collecting allies.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to follow Perrin, so it's just okay, you know what? I want to follow you. Where are you going? I'm going too. So I don't know. That's basically how I kind of I always thought of that. I was just Matt, I guess, is luck, and that luck basically lends itself to his decisions when it comes to or chances that he takes when he's basically in battle, or trying to
get lucky,
do a heist, get lucky, plan a heist or something like that. Everything happens exactly the way that it needs to happen, for him to be successful. And Perrin is just yeah, why don't you come along with me? And it's yeah, I think I'm going to come along with you. And he's just because I needed you. Come on, we're going to walk over this way. Yeah. And Rand is just walking around. Everything's just okay. Everyone just realizes, okay. I don't know. I kind of just, I can't put my finger on exactly what Rand's specific, Rand doesn't have a specific thing that he's good at, like how Matt and Perrin have. Like Perrin is just an obvious great guy, honest guy, straightforward. He lends himself to being a leader. Matt is a gambler. He lends himself to being a great general to take, and with obviously with the knowledge that he gains, he becomes a great general and takes chances at the right time, basically. Specifically, Rand, I don't know. I guess he's just a general catch-all.
He's the savior of the world. It's catch-all.
Yeah.
He's the balance. He's the thing that makes everything else.
He is balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is balance. That is his whole existence, which is part of why he has, in many ways, the least flamboyant personality of the three.
Mm-hmm.
Darlin appears, and then all we need is
Toram
Rioton to show up, and it's like, yeah, he'll be here in a minute.
Yeah, it's like
He's
just
right
give him
there.
a few pages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to back up just a quick second. When Min basically goes on her whole conversation of balance, basically. Yes, her mini lecture on balance. She basically, I'm like, Rand didn't know that she was reading Fell's books. I'm like, I wonder how she got his books out of there, or if that is that books that Rand had.
I think that's
from
what
Fell,
it is.
and Min just basically started picking it up.
Yeah, I think that there's a scene somewhere, I don't remember if it's before or after this, where she picked one up to avoid talking to Fael.
Before.
Right, true. Yes, and she just got into it.
And then she gets sucked into it. So I guess Rand was just like, interesting. But this is the first time that it's like, no, useful.
Mm-hmm.
Useful. And he's basically in his mindset right now, he's thinking of who can I use? So I'm just like, I was like, I wonder if right after that, Rand thought, I need to get her on thinking about some things that Fell basically was working on for me. Yeah,
for sure. This is when Min becomes like, I mean, she's always my favorite character because time is a puddle, but this is definitely when my favorite attribute of Min comes out. And she's like, I just casually picked up Philosophy 501 like last weekend.
Exactly.
And like schools a couple of nobles on it. Like,
no big deal.
They're all looking at it like,
condescendingly too.
Yeah,
very
like,
condescending.
What?
Yeah. But I was like, that shows that she's so much deeper than just her viewings.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, she doesn't just have powers granted by the pattern. She has powers granted by her hard work and brain.
Wow, she can read.
I know.
Yeah. And a lot of boring days alone in a room with a bunch of books.
Yeah, none of us can relate to that.
Not at all. Books. Yuck.
So, yeah, Lady Caroline covers Thomas, which is just like, okay.
Thomas Tricand from a minor branch of the house.
Jicey.
Yeah, Jicey.
Of the Hill Tricans.
Yeah, and then gives them the appearance of being married, which Min really likes.
Mm-hmm.
Min's like, man, wife and husband are really cool words. I like these words. Let's apply them to ourselves more often.
Oh, and speaking of Moraine references, Rand pulls out a wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
I know. I noticed that.
Arrogance on a mountaintop.
The Dragon Reborn to just about anybody.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, this chapter just keeps hitting me with Moraine references over and over and over again.
I wonder if his confidence level also adds to his Taveran effects, or positive Taveran effects, basically, that he sees around, where he's just like, she introduces herself and he doesn't even use his name. He's just like, I'm the Dragon Reborn. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I wonder if basically that kind of like his confidence even boosts the power of his Taveran effects on people, basically.
It's like a power word or something. Like invocation.
Exactly. Kind of like, like how they say power, words have power, and like, basically, so his confidence, including the prestige and, just the, what's the word? Anyway, basically just saying this, he's the Dragon Reborn. He's like one of the most well-known, characters or personalities that will basically live during their time, and they've been waiting so long. So just basically to introduce yourself as the Dragon Reborn, it's just like that would affect you, even if he didn't have any kind of powers, basically. So that, along with the Taveran, I was just thinking to myself, like, I wonder how the Taveran effect manifests itself, basically, to make people say things they didn't want to say, or do things they wouldn't have done, or just basically make someone, become more comfortable and exposed, open with him, when they're talking to him. Because even Caroline basically, says things and does things that she wouldn't normally do, but just thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and if you tell someone I am the Dragon Reborn, you are now priming them to expect certain things. That makes it easier for the pattern to warp to make this sort of stuff happen. The odds go up that a thing's going to happen because
Right.
people are like, I'm not dealing with a random farm boy. I'm dealing with the Dragon Reborn. Like,
Right. Exactly. Like,
it makes their mind already move in odd patterns. And so then you can just push them a little bit further.
yeah.
I think that's also a lesson that Moraine taught him.
Yeah, how people see you matters a lot. And I mean, Egwene really flexes on that a lot too, making people call her mother and introducing herself as the Amerlin Seat. Like, this works on a lot of levels. It's just hyper powered if you have Taviran involved as well.
What I find interesting about Rand's journey, he almost goes backwards. Like in the beginning, he's all like decked out with the golden coat, and then he's like decked to the nines. And as he becomes more powerful, he sort of becomes more and more the beggar king, and more like ratty, and like now he's wearing a plain coat, and like he gets more arrogant and dresses less and less well. So,
like some old ratty New Balance, old red Sox hat, and it's like exactly. It's like, I'm the Dragon Reborn. Oh my God,
it's like when you see celebrities going out in public and just like the most ratty ass sweats, and you're like, yeah, you're powerful enough to just not give a shit anymore.
Exactly.
You don't need to present the image of power because you have power.
Right.
So then Darlin comes up and she starts to describe him, and it's just like she says that you can forgive his too long nose. I'm like, what is Jordan's thing with noses?
It really is.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how you make somebody ugly. You give them a nose that doesn't fit their face. It's either too big or too long, or
tiresome.
And his nose. Exactly. But yeah.
It's a well he comes back to as a way to describe people, and whether or not that's a great well, it's one of his features. He doesn't describe the eyes or the eyebrows or the mouth; it's the nose.
Yeah,
it's the nose.
He really should have used eyelashes and just been people with short eyelashes are evil, people with long eyelashes are good, or something like that. But
that works for me.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's just he's got a tool in his kit, and he uses it. And I mean, I'm not writing a 15-book series, so I have minimal room to judge. It's just that noses are such a classic thing to code people as being good or evil that it's like, there's a lot of other features you could have picked to like break some tropes, but no, you just leaned right into a normal trope.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, I mean,
not broke.
Darlin's is too long, and he's not evil. He's a great dude. So
it's true.
Right. He has pretty blue eyes and a nice laugh.
Yeah, and then Taram Raitan is like gorgeous and is absolutely disgusting. So, despicable person, despite looking like a model.
He's got a parasite living off of him.
Well, that does hurt. But we learned from Caroline that he was an awful person even as a child. So.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Right.
The whole Kyrian and Noble seem to all be just kind of terrible people from start to finish.
Yeah, with very few exceptions, because there's so freaking many of them that, of course, there's exceptions.
Right. Moraine being one of them.
Yeah.
So we get quite a bit of prophecy about Darlin and Caroline, knowing that they're going to marry, knowing Darlin's going to get a crown, even though there's no King of Tyr. We do know that ends up being the King of Tyr.
Yeah. And she's like, it's a crown, but I don't recognize it the nation. I'm like, because it doesn't exist yet. I mean, the position of King of Tyr doesn't exist yet, but it's so great later on when they're like, do you want to be King of Tyr? And he's like, I guess. And Min's like, I can tell you how the crown should look.
Yeah. And everyone's like, what? Why? Yeah, no, that's one of those funny little paradoxes where I'm like, would the crown look that way if Min hadn't seen it?
Right? Yeah.
Right.
And it's got a slightly curved sword on it, which is basically Rand's sword. So, like, his crown is basically like this crown was bestowed by the Dragon Reborn. Like, that's what the crown says.
I didn't pick that one up.
I mean, it's not like it's a Herrenborg sword or anything, but it's a slightly curved sword. And, like, Rand's sword never gets described without having a slightly curved blade. So it struck me as being like, it's literally Rand's sword on this crown that didn't exist before he came along, right? Because, like, mostly he collects crowns, but occasionally he just sort of manifests one.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. It's also with the curved sword, it almost looks like horns, like above his head, or like an eyebrow, something like that.
Yeah, that would probably look exactly that's what I see. Like I don't know the name of the kind of sword that's in my brain, and it's probably not the right kind of sword, basically. But whenever I hear like a slightly curved, is it slightly curved? Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Slightly curved, or is it okay? Because I in my brain I heard curved sword, and I think of one of those old kind of like Middle Eastern type
Like
of
a
like swords
scimitar?
that like you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
one of those
scimitar.
big kind of swords. Yeah, exactly. That's what I kind of saw in my brain, but I was like, yeah, that would kind of look like yeah.
Yeah,
Kind
just
of
like little brows.
eyebrows.
Yeah.
The ultimate
But if you-
unibrow.
What if he was like, you know what? I don't like that.
No.
Yeah, Darlin was like, yeah,
Yeah,
not
no.
so much.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can we have
no,
like,
not feeling that one.
a fish or something? Because we're tired and everything's about fish. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Lose the sword, change it to a fish. Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
instead of a hilt, just put fins on there, like just have it curving and jumping instead of the sword.
Yeah.
Absolutely easy replacement.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he's going into the camp. Min's like, "Are you mad?" And he's like, "Not yet." And then everyone's like, "Wrong,
Incorrect.
Yeah. Incorrect. You are quite mad."
One thing I noticed that was funny is that the people who lose their horses for Min and Rand to be able to ride are also the ones who like flex the most when they think that Rand is disrespecting Caroline and Darlin. And it's like the two people who stepped out of line to like defend the honor, they're the ones that get kicked to the back of the line. Like, no, you don't speak out of line. Just like it just happens to be those two, just coincidentally.
Yeah. Who made that decision? Darlin.
Yeah, I think because he's a good leader.
I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? Maybe he caught that out the corner of his eye, and he was just like, you know what? You're not going to don't teaching them a lesson not to disrespect, guests of Caroline and his basically. I thought it was pretty cool of him to choose that he chose those two.
Yeah. It's like you two are trying to, you yappy little dogs trying to show off how great you are. Like, shush, back, I don't care.
What do you think about the conversation between Rand and Darlin and sort of the back and forth around why he rebelled, and Rand being like, it's not an excuse, and Darlin being like, yeah, I did it anyway.
And now I'm on that course, so I just have to stay on it. Exactly.
I mean, I love it because it gives us a sense of what decent leadership is like in this world, which we don't get very much of. And it gives you a peek behind the curtain of like people can make bad decisions because they feel committed to a course of action. And they're continuing to make bad decisions because they don't feel like they have any other path. And, I like the fact that Darlin is like, I could have handled some of the things that the Dragon Reborn did, but these other things I couldn't handle. And so I made my choice. And now I made my bed and I'm lying in it, basically. And I like getting to actually see a little bit of how the sausage is getting made mentally.
I like the open and honestness that he had with it. Just basically kind of just like you said, showing that he basically opposed him for one reason or another. But, after he got on that, he didn't have any specific reasons of any real solid reasons to oppose Rand. And it kind of also that to me kind of opened up the opportunity for Rand to kind of like, I guess, bury the hatchet with him because he was just like, I don't, he pretty much could have said, I kind of don't remember why I don't know. I don't remember. I just did, it was invaders. I mean, it's understandable. The Aiel basically broke into the stone and he was fighting them and they're with him. So obviously they're all his enemies, and basically he just decided to leave. So he would have been there when Rand took the stone and then basically left Kalendor in there. After Rand sent them to Kyrian, that's when he basically left and committed treason. Is that did he go to Kyrian with them?
He's one of the ones that Rand leaves in Tyr. He sends some of the less cool ones to Kyrian.
Okay, the ones that were trying to kill him, right? That's the ones he sent
behind.
there.
Darlin is the one that Matt knocks out in the Stone of Tyr when Matt hits him with the staff.
Right.
Yeah, whoops.
Yeah, and
classic.
I know, right? It's a very slapstick moment.
Classic move.
Lord
Exactly.
of Chaos, Chapter 4, Darlin leaves Tyr as soon as the Stone of Tyr falls, openly rebelling against Rand. So he basically, as he gets knocked out, wakes up.
Oh, okay. So he
dips.
doesn't stay
leaves.
to try to ingratiate himself with Rand.
No.
He's just like, you brought invaders into my home. We're not cool. Which is, again, very fair.
Very fair. Very fair. I mean, more honest.
I mean, even though Rand didn't bring them, but whatever.
I think he just got embarrassed by Matt, frankly. A farmer with a quarterstaff, and he's like, I'm going to take my sword and go home.
Never going to live this down.
That's actually why he puts a sword on the crown, because he's, embarrassed from the experience of getting knocked out by Matt.
I swear, I'm really good at swords. I swear.
Yeah, I swear.
Yeah. But, I mean, Darlin's two goals in life are to marry Caroline and to see Tyr sovereign on its own land again. And it's like, I can respect that. And I think that's part of what this conversation is for. So it's like, okay, Rand can respect and trust this guy because his goals are extremely reasonable for a fancy pants person from a super classist country.
And
Right.
and it's not necessarily, I want more power, therefore.
Right. He's like, I have my heart's desire.
Right, because then he could have stayed
and
around.
I want my country to not be under occupation.
Right. He could have stuck around basically and tried to ingratiate himself into Rand's whole accepted tyrant lords basically that he sent off or that he kept there basically, but he pretty much left. So it was just like, yeah, okay, I respect that. You fought for your country. You didn't like who did someone taking over. It's not the fact that you're some type of dark friend that you're trying to kill me in my sleep or something like that. Basically, you just decided to leave. So
Darlin even says, Rand is like, other Tyrant lords follow him. Why aren't you? And Darlin's like, they are all traitors. They cringe and lick his boots and will stab him in the back at the first possible opportunity. I opposed him straightforwardly. I could have made alliance with him straightforwardly, but he's a king or whatever, so he's not going to listen to me. There's no way I'm ever going to get to talk to him honestly like I'm talking to you, Tom Ostracand.
Exactly. I mean, he's nothing like you, Thomas.
Yeah, nothing like you.
He's nothing like you. He's nothing like you.
Yeah, I'll stab him in the face, not in the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because he's a stand-up kind of guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If he would have had a chance to actually fight Matt.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I mean, he probably was going to stab Matt in the back. But again, his home was under siege. The rules are a little different in the thick of battle.
Sure.
Right.
So we descend into the camp, which is very depressing.
Yeah.
And we enter the tent, which is why we all have tents as our background.
I looked up a silk tent for this lovely picture.
With no fewer than 4 high conical peaks. So this is a 4-poster tent. It's big.
It's huge. It's the amount of silk that went into making this is truly criminal.
And when Min passes inside, she feels it just as she passes by. She's like, "Oh my God, it's silk! Seriously,
Right.
It's silk."
So ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is what Val and Luca wants for his because he talks about getting everybody under one big tent, and I'm like, well, there you go. We know we have the big tents. Really, all Val and Luca's traveling show is really a prequel to a big tent circus.
Yeah,
that's what it ends up becoming.
He's Barnum and Bailey.
Yep.
Exactly. I found it interesting Min's description of the camp when she comes in. She says that basically there's a permanent haze of dust in the camp, and it's made me think of basically Fane and his dagger powers or more death powers. And I'm like, I wonder if that's how he kind of manifests the fog.
I was wondering about
from
that
dust
too.
to fog,
Yeah.
not exactly the same thing, but at the same time I was like, interesting. There's a permanent haze of dust already there.
I imagine that's more just trying to represent the disused, rundown nature of the camp. That they don't have any paved stones, just these muddy,
dry, desolate,
and it's drying.
and
hot.
It's hot. Yeah.
It's hot.
I think the dust is definitely meant to help invoke that everything is more desiccated than it should be because the Bowl of the Winds is about to get used. So
Right. No, this is peak hotness before the Bowl of the Winds gets used, before we have any breaking.
Peak hotness.
Yeah.
I just came back from Tampa, so I'm just like, yes, that's Tampa.
Yeah.
Peak hotness.
We all experienced some peak hotness this year. It's been
and
pretty
we will
bad.
be again in the Pacific Northwest here. Next couple of days are supposed to be real hot.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
How's tomorrow looking?
89. And that's out here, which is cooler than where you are as a rule. So yeah.
Oh, tomorrow's gonna be busy in the kitchen. Okay.
Yeah, that's all the way through the weekend. It's supposed to be low 90s, high 80s, and the way these things are going lately, it'll probably go to a freaking 100. But
It should be 97 like in a couple days over here. So
Yeah.
it's hot everywhere. Yeah.
my grandparents are coming up from California, and they are tiny little people that are very, very cold all the time. So they'll be happy. But the rest of us will not be happy.
That's like me. I like it warm personally, but
Anything over 80 and I'm starting
not
to
too
get
warm.
grouchy.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Anything over 75, and I'm like, ugh, cool me off. Put a fan on me.
Right.
Please.
Well, yeah, like after 75, I'm like, I don't want to do anything, but I won't start actively bitching until 80.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't usually. Actually, I could stand outside in the heat. I actually like that, but at the same time, right after that, I come inside and I have complete like a heat rash all over me, and my face starts to peel. And I'm just like, why didn't I get sunscreen? Why didn't I just spend more time? It must be something this from living in New York for most of my life. I'm just like, oh, I want sun. I want the sun on my face for as long as I could possibly get it on my face. But,
I was reading a thing the other day about how apparently in like Scandinavian countries, like whenever the sun comes out, like the clothes come off. Like everyone's just like, oh my God, sun, because it's such a rare occurrence to get sun. Like, it doesn't matter how cold it is. Like the need for sun is just like, it's a compulsion. Clothes come off and the sunlight gets absorbed. And I mean, I heard this on the internet about a whole region of the world. It's probably not true, but
that's definitely true in the South or in the North. I mean, hey, I when you know that it's basically getting warmer when you see women outside basically in less and less clothes. At least that's basically what I observe, or at least have observed over the years. Is it's like, okay, yeah, Daisy Dukes, it must be 60 degrees outside. Here, there goes winter.
yeah, for me, I'm so pale that if I stand near sunlight, I'm already getting enough. It's like in the winter, that's when I'm like, okay, bare arms, I need sunlight. But like this time of year, I'm like, I'm just gonna go hang out in the shade near to the sun, and that will be plenty. Thank you. I'm already freckling.
Right.
It's obnoxious because I look like I should be in Norway, desperately chasing the sun, not down here. Anyhow,
Desperately chasing the sun. That sounds like a really good book title.
it would be.
Yeah.
Like a space travel thing where it's like we have to find a planet to put the colony before everyone dies or something.
Or anything that takes place in Portland.
True.
So he walks into the tent, and there are Aes Sedai there.
Also, long trestle tables groaning with food. There's like famine all around, but please give me more of this, delicacies upon delicacies for the rich people. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You see that later with the siege in Camelin. Same deal.
That's a good point. I didn't even notice all the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just perhaps skipped right over that part, but yeah, exactly.
It's just rich people, man. Rich people. They suck.
Always.
They're so selfish.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if I was rich, I wouldn't be like that, but at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I would be an excellent emperor of the world with all the resources. I would not make bad decisions with that power. Definitely not.
Definitely not. Definitely not. No. Yeah.
So the three Aes Sedai, you've got a green, a yellow, and a gray. Apparently the notes say that's been changed in some books.
Really?
The yellow used to be a brown, but then Samitsu is in this group, and she's yellow.
She's brown. It's brown in my copy.
Oh.
I was listening just as far as, I'm gonna have to look to see in my copy to see what it actually says, but on the audiobook, it said green, brown, and gray.
Okay, yeah. And that makes sense because of the edition of book I have.
Yeah, and the digital book has been corrected to yellow.
Okay, because it's Samitsu.
Yep.
Oh, right, because she's vital to Rand getting healed. Oh, yeah.
Because I remember her, Catherine basically making so much of a big deal about, you're the best alive, and I was just like, a gray. I assumed that was a gray that she was supposed to be. I was like, really? But yeah, it would make sense that she's a yellow. That's something that was just always confusing to me.
Well, that is a good correction then to change a brown to a yellow.
Yep. And then, of course, we also have Codswain. So I don't think she's the one wearing the green shawl.
No, because she shows up. I mean, she's distinctive from all angles. The bun
Right.
with the ornaments and all that. And there's a lot of Aes Sedai here because there's a lot of nobles, each of whom has an advisor. So
there are more than those three
yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah, there's reds in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and one red dies when the fog happens. I guess maybe that's the only red because we don't know if any Aes Sedai run other directions from when everything scatters. We just
No.
So, I mean, there's several Aes Sedai, very ambiguous several. Probably some that never get named that just happen to be there and then run the opposite direction.
Well, I don't think the gray or the green get named here.
I can't remember who else is in the party on the way. Are there 3 Aes Sedai that go with them on the way back to Kyrian? Cad Swain, Samitsu, and somebody else. I want to say there's 3.
Yeah, there's 3. There's 3. Catherine is Catherine Smitsu and someone else. I can't remember her name.
No,
I don't know why Koiran is coming to my mind, but I don't think it's Koiran.
It's a Nadine.
Okay.
Nyanda. I'm not remembering her existing at all, but I'm flipping ahead and I'm seeing her name. So yeah, that must be who that is.
Sorry, I'm just like looking through the book trying to.
This is important information.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Nadine is advisor to King Galdrian, she disappears after his death. So she's probably, since Galdrian, Ryotan was related to Galdrian, right? So
So she's attached herself to the next Ryotan. So she's part of Toram's general entourage. They're probably not in good standing now with Fane hanging around Toram.
No, I don't think he really likes the Aes Sedai very much. And Toram is definitely under the influence of Fane. In the same way that, when we go back to Shadar Logoth, right, Mordeth showed up to be Wormtongue and influence it and create Mashadar in the first place. And here, Padden Fane is trying to take on a similar role to Toram Ryotan and get him to marry Caroline, take over Kyrian, and basically create another Mashadar and turn that city against itself.
Yeah, Nyanda is a gray, so it makes sense that she would be clinging on to the entourage even though her official assignment was killed. Like, she's a gray, she can make it work.
She probably would have stayed around just to help the transition, just basically try to help whoever comes into power next, basically.
Right, because she should be devoted to the country as much as to the ruler. So if the ruler gets assassinated, then your obligation to the country says you have got to stick around and help this transition work smoothly.
Yeah, I could imagine Swan, if she just basically walked back into the tower and she's just like, well, my person died. And she's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Right, yeah, totally. Like, you shouldn't be here then.
Turn back around and get on the next ruler.
Like, have you heard of pigeons? That's how you tell me this news.
Oh, pigeons. Oh.
No.
Exactly.
Dude, I'm sorry, man. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
My bad.
Another person that they fought is David Hanlon.
Yes.
David Hanlon. Yeah. With the White Lions.
Yeah.
And Min sees, all this, like, she said, bruised hues, almost black.
That's nasty.
Yeah.
And he's the one who kidnaps Elaine, right? And kills Brigitte, right?
Yeah. And she says in this vision here, like, his hands would be red with more rapes and murders before he died. And he does die in the last battle, but that means that we know he commits murder because we see it on screen, but like, he only tries repeatedly to assault Elaine. Like, oh no, he assaults, what's her face? Falion. I mean, it's sort of an arrangement between them, but still. Yeah, he's doing his own thing for the whole rest of the series until Brigitte arrows him in the back from her ghost state, which is awesome.
Awesome. Can't wait to see that one.
Yeah,
definitely.
But yeah, he's a scary character.
And even Rand basically is just like, if you look among the White Lions, you'll find a lot of dark friends.
Yeah, and it's like Hanlon is a cut above an average dark friend. He's really bad news. And the fact that Min has this vision here is you're like, okay, so he could do literally anything to anyone in our cast the rest of the thing. He hasn't already done the bad things. He has more bad things to do.
Right. And it sounded like he was kind of trying to come on to Caroline when she walked in, and Caroline kind of brushed him off, and he glares at Caroline's back as she walked away. And I was just like, oh, what he would have did to Caroline. I'm so, it's a good thing that she basically was able to not even, entertain him, basically. Yeah. I'm sure he would have been horrible.
Well, he's obsessed with, like, fucking a queen. Like, that's his whole thing, right? Like,
I think he just wants to dominate women of power.
Yeah. He reminds me of Valda a lot in that way. It's like, for him, it's really not about the physicality of sex. It's about domination. And over anyone, like Hanlon in particular. Well, Valda also, like, they'll dominate anyone, man, woman, just the more power they have and the more humiliation you can inflict, the better.
Mm-hmm.
He's not cool. It's good to have such a terrifying villain that's really human. Like Fane is supernatural. Trollocs and Fades are supernatural. Like Hanlon is like, those people exist.
Mm-hmm. They're willing to do anything for a buck. It looks like
Right.
he probably looted Kyrian during the Aiel War. Probably went in there and just who says the Aiel were the ones doing all the looting?
Right, or the Dragon Sworn / bandits. Like he's definitely would be like, oh look, there's chaos. Let me just have my jollies.
Right, totally.
Right.
And he's like killed kids and stuff. Like he has no morals. He has no real desires other than money and power, but like not political power, like dominating other people power.
No, and he was from the White Lions who served Samael, right? Or served
Robin.
Yeah.
And so like clearly like a bunch of dark friends.
And like Millie
Hamlin's one of them.
Skane like was evil decades before the story started.
Right.
Like no problem with that.
No.
He did not have to be corrupted. He was very easily recruited to the dark side when the evil chosen show up. It's like, oh look, we already have some people ready to go.
It's like, where you guys been?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
according to RJ,
I got a head start.
It's the evil acts of people that are causing the breaking of the seals, and it's just accumulation over time that eventually.
Oh really? The Dark One's not breaking out. The Dark One's being broken out.
By basically, people's corruption from the outside.
Huh.
That like, that's what allows the Dark One to reach out and essentially thread the knot of the seals.
Huh. I always envisioned it going the other way.
Yeah, me too. It was an interesting
Right.
quote. And I always take quotes with Robert Jordan with a little bit of skepticism, but
Are you sure, Robert?
yeah, are you sure? Did someone catch you off guard with that question? Did you not have your notes in front of you? Did you change your mind later? Those are all possibilities.
Are you deliberately fucking with us just because you're evil?
And then he goes Raphael.
Right? Yeah. Because, why couldn't it be both? Why couldn't it be the Dark One in a timeless state of trying to break out and then the world slowly decaying towards inevitably being evil enough for him to break out?
Right. But
Right.
I think what Jordan was trying to say...
One thing causes the other that causes the other. Yeah.
If people had just all been good to each other, there would be nothing for the Dark One to break into, right? There just wouldn't be any evil for him to reach, to power up on or anything like that.
But at the same time,
seals.
like, evil comes into the world because of the boring that lets the Dark One into the world.
I mean, certainly I think there's all sorts of different kinds of evil. Fane proves that. And I do think that, like, Age of Legends wasn't the utopia we think it was. The Daishai and Aiel were servants. There was some mind control. There was some issues before the Boar. The Boar definitely caused the idea of war to come out, but like it wasn't a perfect society.
Yeah, I think that's actually in the Big White Book that like evil got kicked up a notch with the drilling. It's not that it didn't exist; it's that like the potential for it to escalate or something. So yeah, basically war.
Yeah, because Semiraj was kind of like, doing some real kind of like, sadistic stuff, at least borderline sadistic, at least before I'm not exactly sure of the exact timeline, but at the same time, I feel like she was already kind of on her way.
Yeah.
Towards not being, a quote unquote servant of all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's yeah, there's like decades of her fucking around before they were like, excuse us, the ethics committee has a problem with that. Also, there's been an explosion at the Sharam, and she's like, sweet, I'm gonna just dip.
Have you been beating that person for a month? I didn't know I wasn't supposed to beat them.
Wasn't in the rules that I didn't wasn't
exactly. I didn't see that in the rule book. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's, yeah. And I mean, as we see in Rand's visions at the end, a world with no evil is like hollow. And the Age of Legends was problematic, but it was not hollow. People were full dynamic beings in the Age of Legends. So yeah, the creepy mind control utopia. Yeah, there had to have been evil in that. Just it all, the intensity got ramped up once the boar was drilled.
And also when there's a central place for everyone to go to and rally around, like all of a sudden you go from people doing individual evil acts to groups of people causing problems and gathering together. And then you have this sort of escalating effect where you can support each other in the evil shit that you do.
What then surprises me, though, is that like the immediate aftermath of the breaking didn't immediately undo the seals. Because like it seems like the world has gotten in many ways more just and more better as civilization has put itself back together, and events like the Trolloc Wars like bring it down and then they go up and oh wait, no, the Shan-Chan.
And if it's just a constant, like if you can't ever go back up again, right? Like think about decaying, right? Like once it's decayed, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of decay that's going to happen, and how long that takes is merely a matter of how evil people are being. And maybe a Shamael being in the world every 3,000 years, causing the Trolloc Wars, causing Arthur Hawkwing's conquest, and then the wars, 100 Wars, all of that maybe accelerated it by thousands of years.
And I'm just thinking about the Shan-Chan, like they've existed since Arthur Hawkwing's empire, which was the last time issue was out, and they have been enslaving people the entire time. That's a hell of an accumulation of evil acts.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of like the Aes Sedai being able to tell a lie if they don't believe that it's a lie. If that's how their society was basically built, to believe that this is the right thing to do, that channelers are animals, that basically, it's horrible to us on this side of the world, basically, but at the same time, to them, that's the society that they built, so they feel like they feel justified by doing it. And they find dark friends appalling, and and basically punish male channelers because they feel like they're going to do evil things, basically. But obviously they've done horrible things and are doing horrible things and believe in horrible things. But at the same time, sometimes if that's what you grow up in, you kind of don't see that being as bad, unfortunately.
Yeah. That also, I'm also thinking of Shara. Shara has a very, very
That
tightly
too.
controlled social order that you can only go down, not up on. And also like what you're saying, it was making me think, like, does the pattern have an intrinsic sense of like morality, of good and evil? Because like you're saying, like the Shan-Chan don't see themselves as evil, but they enslave channelers. Does that count as evil against the things? Like, is there a standard metric of evil and good at that cosmic level or not?
I mean, I think there has to be, because the Dark One is an embodiment of evil. So there is this cosmic embodiment of evil, right?
So like, are the Shan-Chan committing evil and wearing away at the seals even though they don't think of themselves as evil?
I think so, but, I mean, I think misery, right? It doesn't matter what they think they're doing if someone is unhappy. Right, if someone is being subjected to pain and suffering, right, that's what breaks it down.
In their minds, they feel like they're treating these people well. It's just like having a puppy that you put sweaters on and you basically give gourmet dog food to, but they're still pets, but they're people, but at the same time, they're just like, but I feed her 3 times a day. She tells me that she's very, very happy to be my Damani, or
my Timber.
No.
She's very happy. Oh,
Look at that tail.
good boy.
You go puppers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, hey.
It's just like the production of Trollocs, I don't think would be wearing away at the seals, right? Because that's not an act of men. Like, they are evil, but they are not choices being made by humans.
That's a debate. I mean, is not the creation of Trollocs a human act?
Well, not anymore. I mean, because otherwise the Dark One is like a perpetual motion machine, being like, aha, the more of my minions are created, the faster I get out. Like, I totally
think that's the thing.
No, I don't. I feel like we started with like, it's choices made by people that wear away at the seals.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that the Trollocs murdering someone doesn't create a little more evil in the world.
But it's in the Trollocs' intrinsic nature to do that. Like, that's not a choice. That's who they are.
It's an interesting debate as to what exactly constitutes evil. Like, is something naturally evil? I would argue that the Trollocs are, right? They're not a part of the natural world, and just by existing, they add to the corruption. And any choice they make, good or evil, obviously they can't make really good choices, but the things they do help. Again, I think there aren't that many Trollocs compared to people, and people do evil shit all the time to each other, so on some level I'm like, maybe they're not contributing a lot. But it took thousands and thousands of years to build up enough evil and taint to wear away at the seals and make them brittle. So
right. I'm thinking about the whole pattern being balanced thing too. And it's like, so okay, so if you have that much evil, or does the Trollocs have their, and this is what's the word? Basically their opposite, their good opposite. Would that be the Ogier?
Yeah, I would think Semeshta, because the Semeshta are created beings.
Yeah, the
green men.
Nim. Yeah.
The Nim, Semeshta and the Nim, yeah. They're created beings that, in the same way the Trollocs are, but they are created to do good, whereas the Trollocs are created to do evil.
Right. So, I mean, hey, for every good, there's evil, so it's just like.
But it's the science of creating the green men, the Nim, that
Lead to
Agenor
Trollocs.
took and
Right.
corrupted and created Trollocs with. So
Mhm.
the magical constructs was a thing that had existed before the Dark One. That's not something that was invented wholly by him.
Right.
Right.
Oh man, that's fascinating.
The blending of animal and human souls, I think, is something that can only happen at Sheol-Gul. I think that's the only place that you could have created the Trollocs specifically, because they are an evil thing and a non-natural thing. But you combine that with the use of creating magical constructs like the Green Men,
Right.
you get Trollocs.
So somewhere basically Agenor just had like a lab where he had like two-headed goats in there, and then he realized that he could go to CERN, and basically now this is up his whole entire, his whole genetics game. And it's like, okay, I could basically completely match souls instead of well,
Instead of just
Yeah.
genomes.
exactly.
And we've seen at least 3 things done with souls in Shadow Logoth. We've seen the mind traps, where the souls are taken out and put in there. We've seen, well, we haven't seen it, but Padden Fane's redistilling, where his soul's pulled out and redistilled. And we've seen Slayer, which is the souls of 2 people combined into one thing.
Right.
Also, the Murdral swords that involve
The
a
Murdral
soul
swords.
to like
Yeah.
finish them off. So
Yeah, there's a lot of like, and then of course the resurrection of the Forsaken, pulling their souls out of their bodies and putting them into a new body. Like, the Dark One messes with souls a lot.
And Agenor had a really outsized effect on the long-term outcome of how the world went. Because if we are going with
Wow.
the Trollocs help wear away at the seals, then like Agenor is way more responsible for the state of the world than any other Forsaken or all the other Forsaken.
I was gonna
combined.
say, is he like the MVP of the dark side?
It
Yeah, I
seems
mean-
like
Issues out there basically, calling plays, but at the same time, Agenor is just like, he's the whole defensive line there.
but like only his past actions, not his current.
yeah, he's just like,
He's a dumbass.
he's living off of all his past accomplishments. He's basically flying high on that, basically.
All right, typical science, like, oh, just because I did the research when I was young doesn't mean I'm not still executing on it. Jeez. Just, you jocks think action now. Hard science matters long term, right? You do the basic science, you can affect the world for millennia.
It's true. I mean, one of the marks of the Anthropocene is the nuclear fallout from bombs. I mean, that's
Yeah,
forever.
Semrod tortured a lot of people, but, like, only when she was around, right?
Right.
Agenor caused Trollocs to eat people for 3 millennia.
Millennia.
How many people did the Trollocs eat over those 3 millennia? A lot.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious plague.
Always leave it to the scientists to basically screw it up for everybody for
Yeah.
generations to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, scientists have an outsized impact on things sometimes.
Sometimes.
When they're not just toiling away in obscurity, creating negative results.
He just walks around this like, that's his claim to fame. Like, I created the Post-it note. I created Trollocs. My name is Agenor. Who? Agenor. That's spelled A. I created the Post-it. He's always just trying to get his shine. He never gets it because the fancy, the glitz and glamour is to be the one who is like Semiraj. She tortures people, He's just like, oh, so you work in a lab? That's all you do? Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, nerd.
Okay, nerd.
So the next thing I have is talking about Padden Fane and Rand being like, yeah, there's a lot of money on his head.
100,000 golden crowns. Hell of a ransom. And this thing about how like Toram Rioton hated Rand before, but now he hates Rand more than he wants the throne of Kyrian, which is like, I mean, any throne is going to be coveted, but a Kyrianan going for that? Oh, it's like, I mean, just in case you were confused about the powers that this guy has, he's really, really toxic.
Exactly. Just walking around, basically. It's. I'm trying to remember exactly. Like, I guess we didn't know exactly when Fane arrived in Kyrian. Well, they said 8 days ago that or not 8 days ago. It was I forgot exactly when Caroline said how long ago Fane arrived, basically. But she's basically said this a few,
that
quote unquote.
That is his constant companion these past days.
Right.
So I mean, that's
like
a couple of days, like a week at
few
most.
Days.
Yeah.
So completely changed his mind around in a couple days.
Yeah.
Potent guy.
I mean, he was already primed to hate Rand.
Right.
Wasn't like turning someone who loved Rand against him, but still.
Right.
And Fane did a lot of that, influencing like Niall and Elida and people who already weren't inclined to like Rand to just absolutely freaking hate him.
Right.
And this is another example of that. Ryoten does end up being just Fane's thrall, completely in his control.
Yeah, completely out of his mind and not thinking for himself. And
He's Fane's wingman now. Yeah.
Yeah, you think Fane's helping you out. That's not how that works.
No,
not at all.
Yeah, Fane co-ops Toram. And then Cadsuane waltzes over and is like, hello, introduce me to this person. And
who I've already met in the last couple of chapters.
She's so deadpan about it.
Yeah. I also know tiny golden birds and moons and stars swayed as she shook her head. Those are totally pointing at Rand, because she's got something that points at men who can channel.
Right.
So the second he walked in, that thing went boop, and she went boop.
Yeah, and then she's like, oh, this idiot again.
Yeah, right. Recognize him immediately. And then it's like, yeah, okay, good job, Thomas, walking into a rebel camp by yourself. Real freaking wise, you dumbass. Like, she calls him out for being dumb.
Yeah, most boys learn not to stick their fingers into the pretty fire. And he's like, I'm not a child. And she's like, really?
Sure you're not.
Go ahead and prove that, why don't you? And then Rand's like, I'm going to go be a complete child. Hold my beer.
My beer. Let's play with swords.
And compared to her, he is. I mean, she's very old compared to him.
Yeah. And he's not even thinking with, like, even what experience he has. He's still in a very reactive state and doing whatever is in most opposition to the people around him. So, like, he's not even acting his age or his maturity level in this moment. So,
not even. Like, if he didn't have, like, Caroline and men around him, he probably would have walked right up to Fane.
And just like gauntlet slapped him.
Confronted him.
I challenge you to a duel.
Well, and he gets in this stupid pissing contest with Ryoten at the end of the chapter, right?
Yeah, totally. Toram Ryoten's like, hey, dick measuring contest? And Rand's like, dick measuring contest.
Dick measuring contest. And they're just like, yes, well, let's whip it out.
And all the women are just like face palm in unison.
Totally.
Right.
But yeah, Toram's whole thing about chasing Caroline is just so creepy and it's skeevy and it's like she's like playing like hard to get with Darlin and you're like, oh, that's cute. And then she's playing like fuck off with Ryoten and you're like, okay, this is the difference between a nice guy and a not nice guy. Like it's real obvious.
And the only thing Ryoten's really got going for him is he is an actual blade master, right? Like, and so he's thinking, oh, I'll challenge this boy and just really injure him in battle.
I'll just accidentally cut his, carotid artery. No, oops.
Yeah, basically. But there's Aes Sedai there, so he'll probably survive that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he'll just be crippled for life. It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Whatever.
And then Caroline will never look at him because jealousy is clearly the only thing that matters here.
Just because Caroline happened to be kind of touching him when he turned around and looked. Oh my God. She has her hand on his chest.
Yeah, like, don't mind the girl like clinging to his arm. Like
exactly. Mine. That's mine. My toy. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It reminds me of what's that? Sorry for the Game of Thrones reference, but the Mountain, how he like crippled somebody for playing with his toy.
The Hound, right? That's like why the Hound's face is all burned. It's because he held his face against the stove for taking his toy truck or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, that's like
exactly.
the weak saucest backstory. Like I get it, but also like, ugh, why are people? Why? But yeah, Toram is definitely that kid.
That kid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
I like the discussion in chat going on about using 13 channelers to turn a Murdral from evil to good.
Oh yeah, and
Like
is that an
doing
evil
the opposite.
act to turn an evil creature to the side of light? And hey, chat, way to run on your own.
Yeah, we're enjoying that. Traveling on beams of sunlight rather than in shadow.
That would be neat. Only on the
yeah.
crepuscular rays, though, the god rays. Only on god
right.
rays.
Totally.
They're basically angels. This is where the seraphim actually come from.
Oh, okay. Just flip Murdral.
Biblically accurate angels.
You'd probably need like 13 men and 13 women in a circle.
Yeah. Oh my god. That would.
Or
Like, what would it
14.
even do? Like, what would its purpose in life be?
Men, well, 14 women and 13 men, right?
Oh, do you need one more?
You need one more woman, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make a circle?
Yeah, you always need more than, you either need one and one, but if you're going to add a third person, then there has to be more women than men.
Yeah, and I think there's a limit on how, I think you can't actually get 13 men into a circle. There's a limit on how many men you can get into
I think
a
the
circle.
highest amount of people in a circle is 72.
Yeah.
So
And I think only 12 of those can be men.
I don't know. That's right up there with power level rankings for things that I've never bothered to pay much attention to. Like, I don't do that level of magic, whatever.
But that's when Damodred comes in with the full circle in the last battle.
Right.
That's what he's got.
Right, with the iod.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Elaine and them did that too with what's the guy's name? Where they basically got the lava from the lava.
Andral and the gateways.
Yeah, I think
that's-
it's not 72, but it's a decent circle of like.
Yeah, it wasn't a full circle because they didn't have that many women channelers,
Right.
so they had as many as they could possibly have. Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, one miracle as requested. Love that scene.
right.
And a bunch of Angreal. So
Yeah. God, that's. I love that part.
yeah, it's a very well written scene, I will say.
Yeah, it's also got very cool art from Ariel Burgess that depicts that
Yeah.
scene.
Ooh.
No, it makes all the work with Andral as sort of this new character. It's like that payoff for all that extra, like, oh, here's a new character at the end of the series. Why are we doing this? And it's like, for one little miracle.
So you can literally open up a portal into the heart of a volcano and decimate the army. Yes.
Which I love the symbolism of really getting into the dragon's mount to drag the heart of the dragon lava flow that kills them. Well, it's great symbolism there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Oh, and I just want to point out, okay, I think women never know their minds until you show them. If you ever say that, you are the bad guy. Do not say that. Inappropriate attitude. Just, I like that RJ put it in here, just in case you were at all wondering if this guy had a redemption arc. No.
No.
Yeah, I think I was watching a period show. It was like from like the 1940s or 50s, basically. And a guy said something along those lines. And I was like, yeah, that's not quite the right, the right thought there, especially when you're talking to a woman who basically just worked in a place where she was building B-52s while you basically were somewhere else. And she built an entire, build planes, and then you come back and it's like, yeah, I'm going to give you an allowance now. Go back into the kitchen. Yeah, that's not going to go over very well with a woman, especially to say it right in front of her. Yeah, she's not going to be like, oh yeah, well, I need to marry this man.
Oh, such clever reasoning. Yeah, no.
Exactly. I never thought about it until you just told me that you need to think for me.
Right.
If you two are done talking, I'll tell you what your opinion should have been about that chapter. Okay.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, Seth. Please go ahead.
Please mansplain how this is annoying.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, here's what you should be saying. But no, I think that was a wonderful chapter. I think that brings us to the end of it, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Which, in a lot of ways, is kind of funky because it really brings us to the beginning of the next chapter because it is just.
It's one sentence to the next.
It's one sentence right to the next. Yeah, it was a very weird cut, but I think the next chapter is long enough that the two would have been too much.
It's a good cliffhanger of a chapter because you had to put a split in there somewhere. But yeah,
Just right before the fight.
I feel bad for all the first-time readers who are going to get to that chapter and then they'll be like, well, See you next time in next episode.
But yeah, it's very much a like commercial break. Like as they go to pull out the sword, you see it both before and after the break. You know, they like repeat.
Yeah,
the
returning
whole...
to that moment to remind you where we were.
No, but I like that. I really like that chapter, though. I mean, obviously, the next chapter is a great chapter too. But at the same time, I liked seeing all the different things that's going on, all the different games that are afoot at the same time in there. The different people, basically, there's dark friends in there, and there's Aes Sedai in there, and they're worried about Rand, and I'm just like, you got murderers in this place, like seriously. It's a lot of different things, and Cat Swain being Cat Swain, basically.
I also like the way it handles like the politics, right? For once, he's actually like addressing the politics of the fact that he rules multiple countries and talking about the rebels, and like we get so frustrated that he just ignores them so much.
Exactly. But I mean, hey, is this like with what he decided to do that morning, as far as going to see the sea folk, he couldn't ignore them and figure that they're either going to follow him or they're not going to be even relevant during the last battle.
Right.
He basically has to address all of these different nations, and this, for lack of a better term, plot lines, just all out there just hanging around. He actually has to address them rather than just ignoring them and trying not to get them involved for their own good.
Yeah.
So he needs to go and scoop those two up, basically, to help him, for later on down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, he has
For
to
sure.
unify them. He can't just leave knocked over bowling pins the whole way. He's got to either like destroy them or acquire them.
Right.
And they become valuable. Like Darlin rules Tyr for him, right? That's hugely valuable.
Exactly.
Darlin is his steward for a long time as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Until they decide to say, no, we want Darlin to be the king.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of the Dragons piece? Like, quit having your stewards everywhere. Give us our own rulers, even if it's literally the same guy. And then Caroline, I don't really know that she does much.
She marries Darlin.
Yeah, I mean, she supports Darlin, basically, but she doesn't, like, take over Kyrian or, bring any other allies in. She just kind of supports
just
Darlin.
the Queen of Tyr, poor lady,
No, I'm just saying she doesn't do much for the plot, aside from,
No.
chill with Darlin, which I guess is good for them.
And start basically a trend in Kyrian of dressing.
Oh, yeah.
Or not, is it Kyrian or is it Tyr when they meet up again?
Yeah, she helps with Min's fashion revival or revolution.
Yeah.
Really. So I guess there's that.
Mm.
That's pretty cool. I mean, women's fashion embracing pants is like, because it's not just Min, right? It's the fact that Caroline starts following Min's lead, and then everyone else wants to do it because Caroline's cool.
Gotcha.
Right. Because Caroline's cool. It's kind of like pink Crocs. Like the other day, my sister's trying to find pink Crocs and was like, pink Crocs? Why like pink Crocs? It's just like, well, Nicki Minaj had pink Crocs on and now they're all sold out around the world. I'm like, really? Seriously? That's okay. So Caroline is Nicki Minaj. There it is.
I like it.
Headcanon established.
Headcanon.
Well, because you've got to have some personality in that house for sure.
And I'm sure she's a great advisor to him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Tyr. I don't know if they would have an Aes Sedai advisor, but at the same time, she would be a good. They obviously get along well. She obviously basically has good enough head on her shoulders that she could see the pitfalls and help Darlin to basically navigate it. So, but no, it's a good pairing.
Mm-hmm. I just wish that she could have done something more plot influential than fashion and supporting a to-be king.
That part, yes, always.
Yeah, why couldn't she be the steward? She was the one who embraced Rand. Like, make her the ruler of Tyr.
Well, she's Kyrian, and so that is a slight problem there. But yeah, I mean, I guess he can't make her. He could have made her steward of Kyrian while he found Elaine.
Yeah,
possible. But wasn't Verlaine already? Steward?
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, all the better that Rand didn't come back and see Caroline on the throne, because that would have been a really bad.
But he just sent
delay.
Verlaine away with.
Oh, right, no,
Baron.
it's
That's right.
what the hell? Dobrain. Dobrain is steward until
Dobrain. He made Dobrain
gets there.
steward.
So I guess
exactly.
he doesn't really need Caroline for anything.
I'm just saying that Caroline would have been charged with what treason or whatever if he would have came back and she was the one who's on the throne.
True.
So
Yeah.
I do get Dobrain and Darlin mixed up
Yeah.
because they're both stewards and they both have the D names. So
Yeah. And there's an N at the end. It's like a D and an N. Ruler dude, pretty cool ally of Rand's. Like,
right, yeah, they really feel like a very similar character.
it's like the S names in the Eyes to Die name salad. It's just like
right,
Robert,
Serene,
Robert.
Celine,
exactly. Van Deen.
Oh, I do like at least Van Deen and Adelius I can link together.
Yeah. What did someone post in the server the other day that they're proposing a combined name for Adelius and Van Deen? Adeline, I
Adeline.
think was what it was. I don't remember. Because we've made Romaine a character. Someone was like, I have an idea for how we can make another pair into a single name.
Except I feel like Van Deen and Adelius are actually like they're different enough because Van Deen is green, she's got a warder.
Right, and the one
Adelius
dies.
is murdered.
And
yeah. And there's the whole like Van Deen starves herself and then gets revenge by killing the murderer and sacrificing herself. Like I think they're worth that at this point that you can't tell them apart, but I think they're worth remembering. Plus Van Deen is green, right? Easy to remember. Rhymes.
Van Deen, green.
It's true.
Thank you for saying that, Seth. I wouldn't have thought to basically think that, oh, okay, that's how I remember it. Because I could never remember that. Like, I'm like Matt in that hallway where he's just like, oh, yeah, this has to be Adelius. And it ends up being
yeah, he's like, I can't tell the difference.
Like, give them name tags.
Right.
Exactly. Is this another thing that we hope that they keep for the show? But who knows? They might just basically cut both of them out.
Or combine them into one. Like,
right. There's details there that I'm just like, the minor Aes Sedai beyond the big, 5 or 6 that we all care about. You got to have
Moraine,
Suan,
Varen,
you got to have Moraine. Right.
Shiriam,
right.
That's 5.
Shiriam.
I think you could get Shiriam.
Alviarin. Because we need a big bad black
yeah, but like a lot of those you can do some combination on. Right?
Varen.
Like, Varen. You have to have
You
Varen.
cannot
have
take Varen
Varen.
out. I riot if we take Varen out.
I will burn that studio to the ground.
Steve is Varen. That's
I will take Steve as Varen as long as we have Varen.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Yeah.
It'll be weird. He'll be in drag, but it's okay. I'll take
I
it.
mean, Varen is such a unique character. Like, we will roll with that. It's fine. I was telling our co-hosts before the episode that I've been getting back into my sewing room and starting new projects instead of finishing old ones. So maybe that will be the next shiny thing that distracts me from my very basic mending. Because those look really neat.
No, Gleeman bag first.
Yeah,
Gleeman
I gotta
bag
finish
first.
the Gleeman bag. Then
How many half-finished projects do you have sitting around that room?
I haven't counted a lot.
Enough that- yeah, okay.
But I mean, do you count like mending versus new projects I haven't finished yet? Because those are like 2 subcategories.
Fair.
Like
Fair. I don't know enough about sewing to really dig into the subtleties of what projects you haven't finished.
Yeah, I haven't even used my sewing room in a couple years, so the backlog is like dusty.
Gotcha.
But
There's bolts and bolts of cloth in there, basically.
oh yeah, for sure. But it is good to be back in there, and the smell of the iron and the sound of the the zigzag. It's fun.
Reminds me of my pottery wheel that I've been hauling around with me for 20 years now, and only set up once in a blue moon.
That's what I'm afraid of. I would love to get back into pottery. Like, I took pottery when I was in college, and it was ridiculously fun and relaxing. And I always wanted to get back into doing a pottery class. And I was just like, if I had a dream home, I'm gonna get a kiln and a throwing wheel and everything like that. And I'm just like, knowing me, that place would turn into storage. It will never ever get used. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh yeah. So it'll be like things are stored on top of the throwing wheel.
Yeah, and then it takes like a whole day just to get the room ready for you to use it. Yeah.
Exactly.
The one thing I've learned about pottery is it has to be like daily habit. It's not something you can just pick up once and then do. It's something you have to hit every single day. Not necessarily for a long time, but because like the moisture of the clay matters. Everything is on like a 4-day schedule or a 5-day like cycle.
And just the feel of it, basically, just knowing like, okay, that feels right. Exactly, getting it to actually stick to the throwing wheel, and basically, knowing how moist it needs to be to actually throw it and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a while to get back into practice of this, knowing what to do. I kind of, every once in a while when I get back into painting, that's exactly how I am with mixing colors and different things. I mean, it could be a mess until I realize what I'm doing. Ooh, that's nice.
I made that.
Oh,
Cool. My mom has tons of things like that around her house that I made.
Yeah, little
everything
little
I made. I was like, "Here, Mom."
Yeah, same. Oh my God, yeah. If you want to see a store of my pottery, go to my parents' house. It is full of my pottery. Absolutely. I walked in and was like, oh my God, I remember making that. I wish that had gotten thrown out.
Right.
It's really bad.
Paintings from high school is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They are the storeroom. It's okay though. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?